Okay, Zok Gemara. And I Mishnah. Hashorchet b'Shabbos uvi Yom Kippurim. If someone shechs on Shabbos or on Yom Kippurim, af al pi shem is chayiv b'nafshoy, even though someone is chayiv misa for that on Shabbos or chayiv skila on Yom Kippur is chayiv kurs. Nevertheless, shechita like sheira, his shechita will be a kosher shechita. Omer Avuna, dorish chiyah barav mishmei derav, asura b'achila liyoma. Even though Shechita Sheira, but you're not allowed to eat that day. You're not allowed to eat on Shabbos or Yom Kippur. That was shechted wrongfully. Rather, it's only going to be mutter after Yom Kippur or after Shabbos b'chdei shiyasa in the amount of time that it takes to make. So let's say it took 5 minutes to do the Shechita. So Motzei Shabbos, 5 minutes later, you could eat from this Shechita. Zok to Gemara, v'naz bin chavraya l'meimar, and the Chavra said the Bnei Yeshiva thought to say that Rabbi Yehudi, who is the shita that holds that you wouldn't be able to eat what you shechted on Shabbos or what you shechted on Yom Kippur, it would be going according to Rabbi Yehuda. Zok to Gemara, hi Rabbi Yehuda, which halacha do we know that's Rabbi Yehuda's, that we know is Rabbi Yehuda, is the Rabbi Yehuda that would explain why it's also that day. Amar Abba, Rabbi Yehuda da'chanahi. It's the Rabbi Yehuda who prohibits something that was prepared on Shabbos. The Tnan we learned, Mitchatkin es hadiluin lefnei behema. You're allowed to cut diluin in front of a behema. Ves hanavela and a nevela lefnei klovim in front of dogs. Rashi learns the diluin are telushin. They're already cut down. You're not cutting them, of course, on Shabbos. You're not allowed to harvest on Shabbos. They're already harvested, but you're allowed to cut them into pieces. And vela afilu mesa hayoim b'Shabbos, even if it died on Shabbos, meaning before Shabbos, it was not muchan to be served to animals. Nevertheless, you're allowed to serve it to animals. That's the shita of the Tanakama. But Rabbi Yehuda Omer, im loy hoisa nevela ma'erev Shabbos. If it wasn't a nevela from erev Shabbos, meaning it wasn't already in the state that it could be used to feed animals, asura why lefi she'ena min hamuchan. Zok Rashi, what does it mean? Eina min hamuchan. Esmoil yesterday kishakidesh hayoim ben hashmoshes of erev Shabbos loy hoisa imedes lemachal klovim. At that point, it was not prepared. It wasn't destined to be eaten by dogs. It was still very much alive. It's not muchen l'machal behema. Maybe it would have been used for machalodam. So Zok to Gemara, Alma Yisifamir, Kivan the loy ischan me esmoil. Since it wasn't prepared for that already from Erev Shabbos, Asura, it's going to be Asur. Hachanami, so too would explain in our Mishnah, the meat from this animal that was very much alive, coming into Shabbos, coming into Yom Kippur, Kivin lo ischan me esmail, since it wasn't prepared from the day before, Asura, and that would explain how Rabbi Yehuda is the Manda Omar, who Rav is talking about, that even though the Shechita is Ksheir, you can't eat it on Shabbos. Zok Rashi, hacha b'masni senami esmail. I'm sorry? Because when he shechs it, it becomes food.
Yeah.
If it wasn't alive, it wasn't oimid l'machal behema.
Shechted the day before or after? It's not prepared.
No, if it was shechted before, then it is muchan. If it was killed, because live meat is not edible. Once it's dead, then now it's something that could be used as food. Yeah. Yesterday it wasn't prepared to be served to a dog. Like the Gemara will explain, the animal that's alive, what it's really supposed to be doing, what it's really going to be doing, what it's set aside to be done, is to breed. And therefore, it'll be also because of muksa, umuksa asura midrabanan. So we're talking about an Isser Rabbanon. It's not Minamuchan. It's not something that's muchan that's prepared to be served to an animal or to be eaten. Amalei Abaye, midami. What's the raya from the case of hachana that we just brought from? Hasam meikara muchan la'adam v'hashta muchan l'klavim. Before it dropped dead, it was muchan la'adam, and now it's muchan to be given to the dogs. In other words, it would have been meichal adam had it been shechted properly. So even when it's alive, it's considered muchan la'adam. It's live. It's a live animal, but it's destined to be shechted for meat. But when it dies, it becomes meichal behema. So zok to Gemara hausa meikar muchan adam hashem muchan l'klavim. And that's why it's not minal muchan, because it wasn't muchan l'klavim, ben Shemoshes is coming into Shabbos. But hacha, in our case, meikar muchan l'adam v'ashta muchan l'adam. This was an animal that's royu. One second. It's saying that my speaker doesn't work. I'm not sure if anyone could hear me. So let me just test the audio to make sure that we have audio.
We hear you. I hear you. It looks like I'm the only guy online here.
1 second.
You hear me?
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So everything works now. Okay, so Zok to Gemara, over here, before it was Muchan Adam, and the one that Shechlet is Muchan Adam. So your Rabbi Yehuda you quoted would not be an explanation as to why in our Mishnah you can't eat the meat that day. Zok to Gemara, mi savris, behema b'chayah lachila imedes. So you're telling me behema b'chayah lachila imedes because it's destined to be shechted and to be eaten. So therefore you want to say it's minamuchan. No, behema b'chayah legada imedes. The norm is that the animal, when it's alive, you want to keep it alive. You want to use it to do work with. You want to use it to breed. So therefore, that's what it was destined to do. So now, on Shabbos, it's not prepared lachilas adam. You shechted it. You're going to have a problem of edam and amuchin. Zok tomorrow, if you're going to say it's edam and amuchin because it was alive, iachi behemel Rabbi Yehuda v'yomtiv hecha shechtinan. Everybody agrees you're allowed to shechta behema on Yom Tov, tzarich al nefesh, but how could you? Why isn't there the same problem of muksa? Before it was shechted, while it was alive, as you're coming into Yom Tov, it was muchan not lechila but legadel. So how could you ever use an animal on Yom Tov? Zok to Gemara, Omar loy, you're right. Oimedes lachila v'oimedes legadel. An animal like a cow can go either way. It can go either way. Nishchata, if it was shechted on Yom Tov, because you're allowed to shechted on Yom Tov, Huvera de la achila imedes. That would determine that all along, if you use breira, it was always destined to be eaten. Why? Because it was shechted. But that's on Yom Tov. Loy nishchata, but if you shechted on Shabbos, but you didn't shecht it up until Shabbos, and once Shabbos comes, normal people don't shecht on Shabbos. So therefore, it's huvera de legadel oimedes. At ben Shemoshes of Shabbos, it wasn't shechted yet. This animal is legadel oimedes. So Zok Rashi, nishchata keshishchuta, that would be even on Yom Tov. Mavur de lachila oimedes. But loy nishchata kegoyin zu shelo shachta esmoel. This animal was not shechted erev Shabbos. Umistame lo yinicha almanas l'shachta b'Shabbos. Bishlam on Yom Tov, you could say, yeah, he didn't shecht it erev Yom Tov. He planned to shecht it on Yom Tov because you're allowed to do that. But coming into erev Shabbos, if you didn't shecht it before Shabbos, definitely your intent is not to shecht it on Shabbos. So therefore, hilchach huvera kishakidish hayoim the lagad elemedes. And therefore, since it's huvera by erev Shabbos, that's lagad elemedes, then it makes sense why, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it would be usher that day. Frank the Gemara, but this cannot be pshat in Rabbi Yehuda. Why can't this be pshat in Rabbi Yehuda? Because v'ales lei, v'ales lei, Rabbi Yehuda breira. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold a breira. This whole pshat was relying on brera, because we say that if you shechted it on Yom Tov, come to Reis, it was always destined to be shechted, but Rabbi doesn't hold a brera. Up until Yom Tov, if it wasn't shechted, it should be aser. Minolam, how do you know that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold a brera? If it's because of the following case, very famous case. If you buy wine from Kutim, Zokt Rashi, Lashiminon, it teaches us the Kutim Chashudim ala Truma. We know, even though we have Demai, there's no chashash that someone, a Ma'orish wasn't Mafresh Truma. But a Kuti where chashash wasn't even Mafresh Truma. Ve'einon ka'amei ha'aretz, shalakeach mahen, ein tzarech lafresh Truma gedoyla, kidetnan, levi sheshalach yoichanan kan gadol b'chol gvul Yisrael v'ra, she'ein mafrishin, ela Truma gedoyla b'lvad. They were mafresh Truma. Demais because they weren't mafresh Maisris. But they were definitely mafresh Truma gedoyla. Alma, what do you see from this story? That a Truma loy chashidi, a nama oretz is not chashid on Truma. Vashemin hacha, but here the Bryce is telling us the kutim chashidi a Truma. Kutim are chashid that they won't even be mafresh Truma. Kitakatani shnei lugan shani also lahafresh, which is what we're about to learn. So the kech yam ben akusim, and it's right before Shabbos, and you didn't have time to be mafresh Trumas and Maisris. So the question is, how can you drink the wine of a kuti? Right? We learned the Yenam Zayin Desach. So Rashi says, "Umishnadu koidem takana de gazru al Yenam nishnis." So here we're choshed. They don't take off truma, but their wine was still drinkable. Otherwise, the whole case is not relevant. So the kech yayim ben akusim. Omer, he says, shnei lugan shani osed lahafrish. I am going to take 2 lugan from this barrel after Shabbos, and I am going to designate them for truma, and therefore the rest of the barrel I'm allowed to drink. Harei hein truma, they will be truma, and after Shabbos, from the wine that's left over, the wine that you're going to use from this barrel over Shabbos, the wine that's left over, part of that will be truma. Asara ma'aser rishon, 1/10 will be ma'aser rishon. Tisha ma'aser sheni, 1/9 will be ma'aser sheni. Or I'm sorry, 9 lugan will be ma'aser sheni. Umeichel v'shoyse miyad. The ma'aser sheni, he has to be poida. He can't be poida to truma. He can't be poida to ma'aser rishon. But the ma'aser sheni, he can be poida, so he has to be poida right away. Diver Meir, but Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosy, Rabbi Shimon Oisrin. So Rabbi Meir is working with brera. How could I say that the wine that I'm going to pick after Shabbos to separate for truma, that's truma now already? And then when I drink from the barrel, I'm assuming that I'm not drinking truma. I'm assuming that the truma, that I designated before Shabbos truma somewhere in this barrel, what I designate later for truma will be what it was. That's called brera. But Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosy, Rabbi Shimon hold it doesn't work. Let's see Rashi. Umeichel, only by the ma'aser sheni you have to be meichel al mois. Umeichel ma'aser sheni. Why? Hoyel v'yochel asaknei ba'mira ba'alma. Since you don't have to do anything to be poided, all you need to say is v'loymar harei umechul al mois sheyesh li b'soicha bayis. All he has to do is say that. Therefore, lo yitiru lechachamim l'shtoisoi v'lismech al brera. You have a way to avoid brera. Therefore, we don't allow you to rely on brera. Aval truma v'shar ma'isris, there some chinin brera. For that we will allow you to rely on brera. Ula'acha Shabbos kisheyer frisham, and after Shabbos when you're mafresh to truma and the ma'aser, will say that it was hover hadavar, that was what you meant to say is truma and ma'aser erev Shabbos. Amrinon, you see from here hover hadavar shezuhi atruma v'zel lo shasa elachulul. And the wine that this gentleman drank over Shabbos was not from the truma, it was from the chulin. But the fact that Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosy, and Rabbi Shimon Aser, Almod Rabbi Yehuda less lebrera, v'chay yishem truma shasa. So if he doesn't know the brera, you cannot possibly learn that the Friedrich Brisa that we quoted about Mina Muchen was going according to Rabbi Yehuda, and you could discuss what's Muchen and what's not Muchen. Because Rabbi Yehuda does not hold a brera. So if Rabbi Yehuda does not hold a brera, then even on Yom Tov, you wouldn't be able to say that it's called Muchen because I ended up shechting it on Yom Tov. Zog to Gemara, you don't have a raya that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold a brera. you're understanding their shita that this doesn't work is because it doesn't hold a prayer. No. Avad Rabbi Yehuda holds a prayer. So why does he have a problem with that method by the yain from the kusim? The Brisa explains the reason why they don't allow it. And the Brisa says, Amru Loiler Rab Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosy, and Rabbi Shimon told the Meir, how could you rely on Pereira to determine what's going to be Truma later? Shema Yivaka Hanoid. Aren't you concerned that over Shabbos that jug might break, and now there won't be any wine left to take Truma and Meiser from? So it's not a problem of Breira. About you could do Breira, but that works if there is wine after Shabbos to separate. What if the jug breaks on Shabbos? So then, come to Chayis, there was never any Trumas and Meisers. Come to Chayis, the wine that you drank on Shabbos was going to be Tevel. Amar Lahan, Reb Meir says, I'm not worried about it. You know what? I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But I don't have to be worried that it might break. So that's what the machlokes is about. Whether or not you're worried it's going to break, but Avad Rabbi Yehuda is the Breira. Zok to Gemara, the statement that we made that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold the Breira, you're right. From the case that we just brought with the wine from Kusim, from there you don't see that Rabbi Yehuda rejects the Sfar of Breira. But Elamiditani Ayoy, from what Ayoy taught us, Ayoy quoted a Mishnah, and he told us that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold the Breira. The Tani Ayoy, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ein Adam Masna al Shnei Devarim Ke'echad. A person cannot be masna on two things at the same time. We're going to see the context in just a moment. Ella, in Ba'achacham. So Rashi says, Ein Adam Masna, Be'ervin it says, Amrinan, let's say you live in a city, and there's going to be a very choshev a speaker coming to speak Shalashudas. They're going to have a very choshev a Perkayavas speaker, but you don't know if he's coming to the east of town or coming to the west of town. Now, the place to the east of town where he would come is out of the Tchum. The place to the west of town where he would be going would be out of the Tchum. So you have to make an Erev Tchumin in order to get to either the place where they're going to speak in the west or the place they're going to speak on the east. You don't know when where he's coming from. So Amrin Masna Adam Alayruve, you can make two Erev Tchumin. Which one will be Chal? The one that it turns out the Rebbe came from, that we'll find out on Shabbos. Masna Adam Alayruve. One 2,000 amas to the east, which would allow him to go actually 4,000 amas to the east, because the Erev is his Makam Shvisa, which is his epicenter. So he can go from where he is 2,000 amas to the epicenter, and then another 2,000 amas, and that will bridge the gap between where he is and where the rabbi will be saying this year. The Echad b'Seif Alpayim l'Mayrev, and he could also make an Erev to the west. And therefore, if tomorrow, I have no idea where the Chacham is going to come. If he comes to the east side, Bismedrash, then there was a Chacham that was going to be coming. And he was not going to be coming into our city. He would have been limited because of where he was coming from, that he would also be out of our Tchum where we are now. And Velidrash, and he's going to say a drasha. So then, if he's going to end up on the east side, Eruvi shal Mizrach yikneli shvisa leMizrach. I want my Erev to be on the east side, and the epicenter of my zone on Shabbos will be where my Erev on the east is. The Erev b'Shabbos b'makom Eruve. My epicenter is at the point of my Erev. Therefore, v'yeshli misham v'hala alpayim. Not only can I go to my Erev, I have another 2,000 amas on the other side of my Erev, because my Makam Shvis is my epicenter. But if they tell me Sheba Chacham L'Mayrev, that the Chacham ended up coming to the east side, then Yikna Eruve Sheba Mayrev. Now what happens if two different Rabbanim come? Balakan Ulakan. And I have to decide which rabbi, which Pirkei Avos I want to go to. Im Yavayu Shnei Chachamim, Zela Mizrach, V'Zela Mayrev, La'eza Mehem She'er Tzefchar, Halichasi. I want to be able to pick Shabbos afternoon if I want to hear this rabbi or if I want to hear that rabbi. I'm setting up my Erev today on Erev Shabbos. But which Erev am I setting up? It's based on the decision that I'm going to make tomorrow. The whole kiniyas erev ben hashemashasi. The kiniyah of the erev has to occur ben hashemashas. That's the point where my makam shvisa is designated. So therefore, it's going to be chal on erev Shabbos, but I'm not going to decide where it should be chal until on Shabbos. That's mamish, a classic case of breira. V'tani ayah, the Polag Rabbi Yehuda Aseifa. Rabbi Yehuda argues on the Seifa. If it's to the Mizrach, only it works. If it's to the Marav, only it works. But if a Chacham comes on both sides, there I don't get to choose. The Katani Bo Lakan Ulakan, the Ka'amar Rabbi Yehuda, and there and only there did Rabbi Yehuda say, Ein Oda Masna Shnei Dvarim, or Shnei Chachamim. You can't make a T'nai that I'll pick which side I want to go to, but Chacham comes on either side. So the Tani Ayah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ein Adam Masnal Shed Varim Kechod Ela Im Bochach Al Mizrach Eruv Mizrach. That works. The Ma'irav Eruv Ma'irav. That works too. But Ve'il Lekanu Lekan Loy. But you can't go both ways. Frank the Gemara B'monishich. If you hold a prayer, that should also work. Ba'vinava Maishna Lekan Ulekan Deloy. Why is it that if someone came in both directions, I can't decide today on Shabbos L'mafreya where my erev was chal? The Ein Breira, because you don't know the Breira. So Mizrach U'Marav Nami Ein Breira. So even if the Chacham only came to the Mizrach, only came to the Marav, that's also Breira determining tomorrow what I did today. But Amar Rabbi Yochanan, you're right. This whole case has nothing to do with Breira. Because Ukvar Ba Chacham. This whole case is the Chacham arrived before Shabbos. I just didn't find out before Shabbos where the Chacham came. So therefore, I could say, if the Chacham is already here, it's already clarified. I just don't know yet. If the Chacham came to the Mizrach, I want my erev to the Mizrach. And if the Chacham came to the Ma'ariv, I want my erev to the Ma'ariv. That's not Breira at all. That's a standard case of Tanai. And at the time that my erev is chal, it's already known. Not necessarily to me, but it has already been determined. But Lakan, that can't work. Because if I know that a Chacham came from both sides, then I'll pick at that point who I want to go to. El Omer Rabbi Yosef, so from the case of Ayoy, you don't see anything that Rabbi Yehuda holds a Breira. Actually, if anything, you see that he doesn't hold a Breira, because he doesn't hold either way will work. So therefore, we have our Raya that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold a Breira, and therefore the Rabbi Yehuda can be the Raisa of on Yom Tov. You could shech on Yom Tov, you could eat it, not on Shabbos, because he doesn't hold a Breira. You wouldn't be able to shech on Yom Tov either. Ella Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda de Kalim he. You know which Rabbi Yehuda would disallow eating?
What? He doesn't hold a prayer.
That's right. So that whole shita as to why Rabbi Yehuda says in our Mishnah you have to delay it. You cannot eat it that day if you shech it on Shabbos. That doesn't work. We don't have a Rabbi Yehuda that holds like that, because we wanted to say it's the Rabbi Yehuda of Hachana. But the problem is, if Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold a bear, he doesn't hold it at Bryce at all, because he holds even Yom Tov he can. So therefore, we need to find a Rabbi Yehuda that would hold in our Mishnah that the animal that you shechted on Shabbos, you wouldn't be able to eat for that day. So Zok Gemara, maybe it's Rabbi Yehuda the Kalim. The Tanan, Kol HaKalim, HaNitlin B'Shabbos, Shivreim Nitlin. What if you had a keli that you're allowed to use on Shabbos, a jug? So even if it broke and now you have pieces, those are also a keli, and therefore they're not going to be muksa. Uvilvad sheyihu oisin me'ein melacha. But they have to be able to do something. You know, if you cannot do anything with these kalim, so then they lose their shem kalim, so they will be muksa. But if they could still do some type of melacha, then it would still not be muksa. For instance, shivri areva, a broken pot, lechasos bahen pichavis. You could use it, you could repurpose it as a lid to a chavis. Shivar is a chuchis, which are smaller, lechasos ben piapach. So they're still functional, so therefore they're not muksa, but they're definitely not what they were before they broke. Rabbi Yehuda is more stringent. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, uvevad shiu oisin me'ein milachton. It's not enough that these are still roy for something, because that would be noida. There would be a new item. It has to be that these these kalim or whatever you're going to repurpose, these broken pieces, they're still like the original keli. They're still a shadow of the original keli, and therefore they have to be able to do malacha similar to what they were originally designed to be done with them. For instance, Shavoya Areva, you can't use it as a cover. You have to use it as a container. So lotzuk l'soichan mikvah, you can at least put a thick porridge into it, it would hold it. Or shvar zechuchis lotzuk l'soichan shemen, to be able to use it as a small oil receptacle. Me'ein melachtanin. According to Rabbi Yehuda, they only retain their shem keli, meaning they're not going to be muktzah, if you could still do with them me'en their original malacha. Me'ein malacha acheres loy. But to say that it transforms into a whole new type of keli, because now you do something completely different with it, that would not work and it would be muktzah. Alma, what do you see from Rabbi Yehuda? Even the loy ischad me'esmoil lahach malacha. Since this keli wasn't used as a lid yesterday, it was a container. Asiri, it will be asur if it can no longer be a container. So we can apply that to the Shechita of Shabbos. Hachanami kiven the lo ischan me'esmoil. Since yesterday it wasn't going to be used to eat, therefore asura it remains asur. Zok Rashi. Yom Tov it's mutter. There's no problem.
Why would it be mutter? It wasn't prepared. No?
The question is, why can't you say it was muchen lachila, or why can't you say it's working? You could say even worse the breira, because we rejected the fact that your view doesn't hold the breira. Let's see Rashi. Hachanami kivin al ichem esol lachila. Therefore, we also say it would be muksa because it's not really lachila. So by Yom Tov, you go with breira, right? By Yom Tov you go with breira. Since I shechted it on Yom Tov, we say that it could have been lebehema, it could have been la'oichel, it could have been legadel, and when you shechted, that determines that it was la'oichel. But on Shabbos, we'll say that right before the shkia, it's already determined that it's legadel because you didn't shecht it before Shabbos. The whole problem why that didn't work earlier, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is because we say is because we thought Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold the bear, but Rabbi Yehuda does hold the bear. I'm sorry, Rabbi Yehuda does not hold the bear. So we're saying now Rabbi Yehuda does not hold the bear. I apologize. So if we're saying Rabbi Yehuda does not hold the bear, like we brought a rye from Ayoi, so in this case, why would Yom Tov be any different? In this case, why would Yom Tov be any different? Because you should also have the issue of noilad. I'm not sure. That's a very good question. Why wouldn't you have the same problem on Yom Tov? I don't know. But let's read the Gemara Vayt. Let's see if it'll come out clear that way. So Zok the Gemara review the Caleb. Just like it doesn't do, just like something that didn't do ben malachton would be muksa, so too here, if you shecht it, it's going to be muksa. So Zok the Gemara alma kiven la ischad me esma lahach malacha asiri hakanami kiven la ischad me esma asura. So your question would be, what's Yom Tov? Okay, I'm not sure. Amar le Abaye midami. What's the raya? Hasam meikara kli, before it was a kli, v'hashta shever kli. V'havalei noilad, and therefore it's noilad, and therefore it's aser. Hacha meikara uchla, ubesoif oichel. It's an oichel before, and it's an oichel after. Now, it's oichel in a little bit of a different condition. It's uchla de ofresu. It's broken up now, but it's still an oichel. It wouldn't be called noilad. V'shamid in leather Rabbi Yehuda that uchla de ifris is shapridami. So now the Gemara is asking Akasha, so on Shabbos should be mutter as well. But you're still asking, why should there be a distinction between Shabbos and Yom Tov? I'm not sure yet.
Because of Yom Tov you could shecht it.
Right. So which wouldn't be called noilad? I'm not sure.
By Shabbos it's not considered prepared because once Shabbos comes, you shecht it.
That's right. So it's noilad.
Also, to be kosher food.
So it makes it not noilad. Okay, so let's see. Let's see if it comes out. Shemina Rabbi Yehuda, the Omar Uchla for a shaper dummy, and we do know that Rabbi Yehuda holds. We know from a different source that if it was an oichel, but now it's a different type, it's broken down, that would still be allowed. That's non we learned. Ain't soichted esa peiros loitzi men mashkin. You're not allowed to squeeze peiros on Shabbos to extract mashkin from them. But im yotzu me'atzman asurin. If mashke came out of peiros by themselves, they'll be usher. And Rashi tells us the reason why they're usher is because it's a gzeira. If we allow you to use the mashkin that came out of peiros on Shabbos, we're afraid you'll actually squeeze them on Shabbos, and then it will be usher. That's a malacha. Rabbi Yehuda Omer depends. Im la'oichlin, if these fruits that you had grapes in a basket, if you were planning to eat them, you had no intention of getting wine out of them. Your intention was to eat them the way they are, so you don't want the mashke to come out of them. So then ayotzmen mutter, because you're not going to squeeze grapes that you're planning to eat. So therefore you don't make a gzera. But ve'im lamashke ayotzmen, but if those grapes you intended to squeeze and get wine out of them, so then if wine comes out on Shabbos, you're not allowed to use that wine because we're afraid you're going to squeeze those grapes on Shabbos. Also, so I'll call upon him. You see clearly that Rabbi Yehuda holds that if it's oichel, you'd be allowed to eat, right? It says imla oichel yoytzim and mutter. So you don't say it's noilat. So you see it would be mutter. So why would Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah hold that you can't eat the meat that day? Zok Gemara, that's not a kasha. Lav itmar Allah. Didn't we say on that brisa that Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Moida Haya Rabbi Yehuda l'chachamim b'salei zeisim v'anovim. If it was stam fruit, regular fruit, other than zeisim v'anovim, there he says it depends on what your intent to do with the peiros were. And if your intent was to eat the peiros, then you're allowed to drink the wine. But if it's salei zeisim v'anovim, which are stomach for mashke, we say those are always called muchan l'mashke. Alma, what do you see? Kivan de la Shechita kaimi, since all fruits, all zeisim and anovim, are generally used to extract the juice from them, yoyiv daite, it's called that his das is on it, and therefore it won't be noilad. Hachanami, right, and therefore it's also because of the gzer you might squeeze it. Hachanami, kivan de la Shechita kaima, since the animals la Shechita kaima, yoyiv daite, weiter, it's not going to be considered noilad. But it will be also. Let's see how we're learning why in this case it would be also. So let's have a look at Rashi. Yoiv datei lemashkin. Since zeisim and anovim are generally used for mashke, we're afraid that he also considers it mashke, even though he might have intended to eat them, but he also considers them mashke. And what's the impact of that? And therefore there's a gzera shema yischot. Then there'll be a gzera that if we allow him to drink the wine that came out naturally from these grapes, we're afraid that he's going to actually make shechita on Shabbos, which is asur. Hachanami kivan de la shechita kaima yav daite the im mishachta achalei. If he shechs it, he can eat it. In other words, his das already before Shabbos was that this is an oichel, and if it shecht it on Shabbos, I'll be able to eat it. Since the stam das of a person is what we're saying, stam das of a person is they look at even a live cow as oichel. It just needs that shechita. But his das is if it was shechted, I would eat it. So therefore, b'hacha gazrinon banami. So now the whole reason why we want to say it's also that day is not also noilad. So now we have our explanation why it wouldn't be relevant by Yom Tov, because it's not a shaila anymore of noilad. It's not a shaila anymore. I'll say minamuchan. It is minamuchan. The problem is just like where there's a oven. If we let him use the juice that comes out naturally, we're afraid it'll make shechita. So to here, if we let him eat the meat that was geschachten on Shabbos, he might do shechita. doing Shechita, what? If you're a little Shechita, but on Yom Tov, you're allowed to do Shechita, so it's a non-issue. So that's how the Gemara wants to say now that our Mishnah could be going like a Yehuda, because the reason we don't let him eat it is because you're afraid he's going to shecht it. Zog to Gemara, midi hu taima elo l'rav. This whole Gemara that forced us to start searching for a Rabbi Yehuda that in our Mishnah would hold you can't eat it that day, because our Mishnah just says shchitas kshera. It's only Rabbi Yehuda. It's only Rabbi Huna Dorish Abchir by Rav Mishmei the Rav. It's only Rav who caused us all this difficulty, because he said Asura Bachila Liyoima, and it was based on Rav saying Asura Bachila Liyoima, and then the Chachamim, the Talmidim, and the Bismillah said Rav must be referring to Rabbi Yehuda. That led us on this chase to find a Rabbi Yehuda that Rav would be referring to that would hold in our Mishnah that you wouldn't be able to eat the meat that day. And you want to say that it's because of a gzeira that you might shecht it on Shabbos if we allow you to eat it on Shabbos, similar to what Rabbi Yehuda said by the mashkin. The problem is, Ha'amar Rav said, Chaluk Haya Rabbi Yehuda afilu b'salei v'anovim. Rav himself held that Rabbi Kiva hold, even by salei zeisim and anovim, you're also allowed to use the mashkin. You're allowed to use the mashkin if your original intent was to eat the zeisim and to eat the anovim and not to use them for a liquid. You would be allowed to use their liquids, and therefore, he's not geyser. So we're back to square one. According to Rav, where do you find the shita of Rabbi Huda that would answer the proceeds of this shchita on Shabbos for a Shabbos? This whole thing was according to Rav, right? And Rav holds that Rabbi Yehuda holds even by salei zeisim and anovim, if your original intent was to use them as Michael, you're not going to be geyser, and you're not going to be geyser and say that you're not allowed to use the mashka yotzeben because he wanted them for a Michael. So we're not choshid that he's going to squeeze them. So once he says that you're not choishish, that he's going to squeeze them, so too over here, you shouldn't be choshid to aser because of the shechita. Look, Rashi, Moed Rabbi Yehuda v'salei zeisim v'anovim, shafilu hitznion lachila, hoyel v'roi b'nei adam, soichlen oisam, hainami mimel chalayu, and therefore v'sharis l'mashkin shezavumen also l'mischot. Okay. So kiven l'lachi kai mistam anovim yogai talayu. So midu taima el rav. Hai shinuya, this whole terrace that we're looking for a Rabbi Yehuda that would hold that the shechita would be also for the day, that's all a libid Rav mishaninala. The iu omar Rabbi Yehuda asura ba'achila liyayim. It's Rav who said all this, and Rav holds cholakaya umatir. He would be matir the Jews that even came out of zeisim and anovim on Shabbos. For hakanami, and so to hear about a case of shechita, amai asura liyayim. Why would the meat be also for the day? Why would we be choshed that he's going to shecht it if he wasn't planning to shecht it before? So therefore there shouldn't be the gzera to ask for the meat that day because he might shecht it. Because according to Rav's understanding of Rabbi Yehuda, if your original intent was to eat the pears, you're not choshed that he's going to squeeze them. And here his original intent was not to shecht the animal on Shabbos. And therefore, we shouldn't have a gzera to not let him eat the animal that was shachar on Shabbos because he might come to shecht it. So Zog to Gemara, we're back to square one. Where do we have a Rabbi Yehuda whose shita would lead to us paskening that the shechita of Shabbos would be osel yoma? Omer Rabbi Sheshes Barei Rabidi Rabbi Yehuda the Nerasi. It's the Rabbi Yehuda about Neros, about Muksa. The Tanya we learned. Metaltlin ner chodesh. Now, normally a ner is muksa on Shabbos. However, if you never ever used it as a ner, it's brand spanking new, and we're talking about made out of cheres, because the problem with cheres is once you use it once and you put oil into it, you can't use it for anything else other than a klisha malachtel iser because it becomes disgusting. But if it was never ever used yet, then you're allowed to be metaltlin ner chodesh on Shabbos. Avalo yasha, not an old one. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So there you see from Rabbi Yehuda that it's not it's vibalt. There's an Indian of muksa, you wouldn't be able to use it. So let's see Rashi. Ner chadash leitliku by the ner shel cheres. It's made out of cheres. U'chu chadash chada chazi lemimah beperi. You can use it as a purpose that you're allowed to use on Shabbos. Avalo yoshan, because then it's mukzu machmas mios shadai is kotzaboy. So where's the muksa over here by a behema? Behema is not disgusting, but the hach behema nami kishakida shayoim have a muksa machmas aver menachai shaloi nishkuta. So therefore, do you know why it's muksa? It's a muksa because of aver menachai. When Shabbos came in, there was aver menachai, and therefore it's going to be usher to use, and that's why Rabbi Yehuda holds you can't eat it on Shabbos. Zog to Gemara, Eimer the Shabbos le Rabbi Yehuda b'muksa machmas mios. If it's a muksa machmas mios, there he held that if at the beginning of Shabbos, it's muktzah machmas mios, therefore all Shabbos you couldn't use it. But muktzah machmas iser mi Shabbos. Who said that if the reason why it's muktzah is because of an iser, like Abraham and Achai, who said that's something that Rabbi Yehuda would hold, that it's muktzah for the whole Shabbos? So in Avadi does hold like that even if it's a muktzah machmas and iser, it becomes a muktzah the whole Shabbos. That's not Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol neiros, shel matkes, metal neiros, metalton. Those are mutter they're not books on Shabbos because they're used for something else. Chutz minan ner shedliku boy Shabbos. Now, if you lit candles in that ner, meaning at bein hashmoshes, it was muksa, so then it's muksa for all of Shabbos, but not if you never used them. So, what do you see clearly? You see if there was an iser upon something when Shabbos came in, because there was neris, the neris were lit in this ner because of that iser, the iser of muksa becomes muksa whole Shabbos. So too, vibalt, you couldn't eat the animal coming into Shabbos, it'll be muksa whole Shabbos. And that would explain Rabbi Yehuda Shechita in our Mishnah why Rav would say that he held his osur for that day. But there's a difference. V'dilma shiny hasam the hu dochi lei biyadayim. If you light neris in a ner before Shabbos, so you are basically pushing it away. I'm not going to use this on Shabbos. That's where maybe Rabbi Yehuda says if it was muktzah machmas isser, it'll be muktzah whole Shabbos. But in our case, you didn't do anything with the animal. The animal was memela, a neighbor menachai. Who said that will be usher whole Shabbos? Maybe it would still be mutter on Shabbos. Ella Amar Rav Ashi, and that takes us to a whole new sugya of Ma'aseh Shabbos, which will explain why the Tan of our Mishnah could be Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, we'll stop here.
More so easier for us because sukkahs that we learned.
There are legacy sugyas. They could be technically more difficult, but since we're more familiar with them,